There is an iceberg currently drifting through the center of American politics, and it is threatening to completely sink the chances of the Republican Party controlling the United States Congress after the elections this November. The man who is supposed to be steering their ship, the former president of the United States, Donald Trump, may have already abandoned the vessel entirely. According to a comprehensive public opinion poll released just last week, more than two-thirds of American voters state clearly and unequivocally that Donald Trump is not focused nearly enough on the actual tangible problems that the vast majority of Americans face every single day. So, the natural investigative question becomes, what exactly is he focusing his attention on while the country grapples with profound economic anxiety? According to investigative reporting from Axios, an insider close to Donald Trump has revealed that the former president is currently concentrating his time and energy on personal hobbies and vanity projects. These projects serve as convenient distractions from his undeniably terrible polling numbers, a reality about which he is reportedly in a state of absolute denial. Rather than face the pressing issues of our time, Donald Trump frequently pivots to showing his visitors architectural renderings of a massive new ballroom for the White House, or presenting a detailed scale model of a planned triumphal arch. He showcases the designs for his new Air Force One aircraft. He loudly touts his grandiose plans for the Washington Dulles International Airport, and he obsesses endlessly over the exact specifications of a helipad that he wants built on the south lawn of the White House. But if you were to ask Donald Trump directly, and this revelation may genuinely shock you, he absolutely insists that he is not the problem. If you appreciate this kind of uncompromising, fact-driven journalism that refuses to look away from the uncomfortable truths of our political reality, I invite you to subscribe to this channel right now so that we can continue bringing you the independent investigative reporting that you deserve. We must continue to examine the disconnect between the political elite and the ordinary citizens of the United States. Donald Trump recently pondered aloud to his associates, asking if he does not run for office, will those voters who support him actually go out and cast their ballots? He stated that this is the one thing he cannot say for certain. He plans to ask them to vote, but the lingering question remains whether they will actually do so, because as he admits, a significant portion of his base is currently very angry at the established members of the Republican Party. When asked why that anger exists, he claims he does not know. He insists that they are not angry at him personally, but rather, their fury is directed squarely at the Republican establishment. We have to pause and critically evaluate that statement. You set aside the hypothetical scenario of him not running for the moment, because the undeniable reality is that this is the current undisputed leader of the Republican Party. This is not the man you want acting as the captain of your lifeboat when the waters are rising and the structural integrity of your political coalition is visibly fracturing. But for the Republican Party, it is already far too late to change courses. They have lashed themselves to the mast of a ship that is charting a course based on personal grievances and aesthetic obsessions rather than the material well-being of the American public. To truly understand the gravity of this situation, we must introduce the perspective of those who are actively organizing against this exact brand of politics. We look to figures like Ben Wickler, the chairman of the Democratic Party of Wisconsin and the author of a highly relevant and timely new book titled "This is the Plan: How to End the Meltdown of America and Save Democracy." It is a compelling and deeply researched examination of the current political battlefield. By laying out a comprehensive strategy, it helps to properly frame this upcoming electoral battle, a battle that, in truth, the citizens of the United States are already actively fighting every single day. The former president obviously believes that he has done absolutely nothing wrong, at least according to his own frequent public declarations. And now, predictably, he has a long list of fellow Republicans that he wants to blame for the current state of his political fortunes. We are all trying to figure out who exactly set this political fire, but the evidence repeatedly points to Donald Trump as the primary individual holding the matches. However, it is fundamentally crucial to acknowledge that he has a tremendous amount of assistance in this endeavor. When ordinary citizens ask why the price of gasoline remains so painfully expensive, or why the cost of basic groceries continues to strain the budgets of working-class families, it is not simply that Donald Trump has taken the political discourse into a disastrous and chaotic direction. It is also the undeniable fact that every single Republican member of the United States House of Representatives has consistently cast deciding votes that prioritize corporate interests over the immediate needs of their constituents. There is an abundance of political blame to go around, but what the American people actually desperately want is for this frankly ridiculous and severely unbalanced economy to finally begin delivering tangible benefits for them, rather than exclusively enriching Donald Trump and his inner circle of billionaire megadonors. The investigative record makes it abundantly clear that Donald Trump wants those billionaires celebrating in his hypothetical new White House ballroom. He does not appear to want to do anything of substance that actually addresses the crippling cost of living for the millions of Americans who are crying out for genuine economic relief. That is the actual fundamental problem that people across the United States are justifiably furious about. And Donald Trump, along with every compliant Republican serving in the United States House of Representatives and the United States Senate, shares the blame for perpetuating a system that disproportionately rewards the wealthiest individuals while leaving the working class to desperately fend for themselves. When we analyze the core arguments presented in Ben Wickler's recent book, it inevitably brings to mind the historical political shifts that occurred in previous election cycles. We can look back to the years when the Republican National Committee had to completely reassess their fundamental direction after suffering massive electoral defeats in the year 2006 and again in the year 2008 against the formidable campaign of Barack Obama. During that specific era, the political party was beginning to deeply fracture. The foundational seeds of what would eventually become known as the Tea Party movement were already planted in the political soil, even though they had not really crystallized into a cohesive national force just yet. There was a tremendous amount of ideological turmoil roiling just beneath the surface of American politics back then, and we find ourselves in a remarkably similar environment during this current election cycle. When you critically examine a critical swing state like Wisconsin or other similarly situated states that exist right there on the electoral bubble, you can see that there is a massive amount of intense discourse regarding exactly where the Democratic Party is headed in the future. Therefore, this central idea of what the actual plan should be matters immensely to the future of the Republic. What that strategic plan looks like on paper and in practice matters to the everyday lives of citizens. We have recently seen extensive reporting regarding the political developments taking place in the state of Michigan, for example. Many political observers and deeply invested citizens are understandably worried about whether a highly contentious Democratic primary election might inevitably spill over into the general election this coming November. There is a palpable fear that in this current cycle, exhausted voters might, for whatever reason, ultimately decide to just stay home and completely refuse to participate in the democratic process, very much like the alarming drops in civic participation we witnessed in previous fractured elections. However, what is truly interesting and highly revealing about what we have recently seen unfold in the state of Michigan and what we will very likely witness in the state of Wisconsin during their upcoming primary elections next Tuesday is a completely different narrative than the one of voter apathy. It is not just that there are many different candidates presenting vastly different ideas and entirely different political platforms to the electorate. It is also the undeniable, mathematically proven fact that there is a remarkably high level of civic engagement and genuine public interest. We have consistently seen a vastly larger number of Democratic voters turning out and casting their ballots in the recent primary elections in the state of Michigan than their Republican counterparts. We have documented this exact same phenomenon occurring in local elections across the entire country, and historical data suggests that this kind of early momentum frequently translates directly into the exact same kind of powerful energy in the general election. If you find this level of detailed, historically grounded political analysis valuable, I strongly urge you to subscribe to this channel right now, because your subscription is exactly what allows us to continue digging beneath the superficial political headlines and bringing you the comprehensive context you need to truly understand these crucial elections. When we look at the internal dynamics of the Democratic coalition, it becomes clear that there is far much more that unites these voters than divides them. The voters participating in these Democratic primaries are fundamentally on the exact same side as the vast majority of ordinary Americans. They are uniformly demanding an economy that actually delivers security and prosperity for working people and not just for those individuals residing at the very top of the financial pyramid. They are demanding a country that does not plunge recklessly into unnecessary international conflicts and disastrous wars that not only cost thousands of precious human lives, but also inevitably make the daily lives of everyone back home significantly more expensive and less secure. That specific desire for peace and economic fairness is the foundational stuff where Democratic voters across the board are standing right there in absolute solidarity with the vast majority of the American public. The incredible level of energy that everyday people are currently bringing to these primary elections is something that they will almost certainly roll right into the general election. They will be actively volunteering their precious time. They will be engaging in deep conversations with folks in their communities, and they will be turning out votes at a massive level that we have arguably never seen in a midterm election environment before. The intense energy that regular citizens are putting into these primary battles carries right into the possibility of a massive blue wave of electoral victories this coming fall. However, as an investigative journalist, I must look at this optimistic projection and immediately raise the critical issue of down-ballot elections. In the national media ecosystem, a disproportionate amount of attention and resources always happens to fall on the big-name congressional races or the high-profile United States Senate races for example. But when you are carefully analyzing a battleground state, and this remains absolutely true for political organizers across the nation, you must look around at what is actually happening in the state legislative districts in your specific region and all across the country. We must rigorously assess the true strategic value of down ballot races and determine exactly what they can tell us about the future direction of things in this country. This precise strategic focus is something that rests at the very core of the comprehensive plan for this election cycle that is detailed in Ben Wickler's recent book. It was also at the very core of the extraordinary electoral results that the Republican Party historically achieved when they focused heavily on state and local organizing. As much as people obsessively focus on the United States House of Representatives and the United States Senate, and they are undeniably important institutions, it is actually the state legislative chambers that are going to have this gigantic, long-lasting effect on the lives of citizens going forward. This is especially true right now because we are currently deep in the season where Donald Trump and his political allies have aggressively tried to initiate a massive gerrymandering war designed specifically to seize permanent structural control of the United States House of Representatives for the foreseeable future. So, when you look at a highly contested state like Wisconsin, there is a very real mathematically viable chance for the Democratic Party to win a governing majority in both the state assembly and the state senate. And the exact same strategic reality is absolutely true in the state of Michigan, in the state of Pennsylvania, in the state of Arizona, in the state of New Hampshire, and in the state of Nevada. In all of these locations, there could realistically be a Democratic legislative trifecta, which would completely transform the political landscape. Consider the state of Iowa, a state which has unquestionably looked like a solid red Republican stronghold for quite a while now. Even there, the Democratic Party could potentially flip 3 seats in the United States House of Representatives, the governorship, the office of the Attorney General, a United States Senate seat, and a tremendous ton of vital state legislative seats. Those seemingly smaller local victories play a gigantic, undeniable role in ultimately setting the foundational rules of the road for the upcoming national elections in the year 2028 and far beyond. If you genuinely want to protect the structural integrity of American democracy right now, we are going to have to closely examine these down ballot races that almost no one in the mainstream media is actively paying close attention to. These are the forgotten battlegrounds where a sudden overperformance by motivated citizens could completely change who has the power to write the rules of how American elections fundamentally work. You have got to passionately protect these local institutions and strictly ensure that cynical political operatives do not rig the system the way that the Republican Party is currently trying to do at a sweeping national level with restrictive legislation like the Safeguard American Voter Eligibility Act. It is the one absolute undeniable truth about democratic elections that a staggering number of supposedly smart political consultants completely fail to understand. Free and fair elections are not won by wealthy candidates dictating from the top down. They are ultimately won by ordinary citizens organizing tirelessly from the bottom up. That is the true plan to save this republic. Thank you for joining me for this exhaustive investigation into the unseen mechanics of our democracy, and please remember to subscribe to this channel so we can continue holding the powerful accountable together.